Fire Emblem Awakening introduced me to Fire Emblem over a decade ago, and I've been hooked on the series ever since. What was supposed to be the swan song for the series turned into its savior, which did a respectable job celebrating every game in the series up to that point. Now, Engage is the best fan service game in this now 17 game long series that truly captures the essence of Fire Emblem, barring the somewhat goofy designs at times. I've already talked a friend into playing it, and he loves the game so far, so I think that's testament to just the quality of the game if people who have played past ones can just jump right into this one and still have a great time with it. Engage manages to use classic aspects of Fire Emblem, like the arena, but presents it in a modern way, making it more balanced and accessible. One of my favorite changes is how classes now have subcategories that have their own unique traits that differentiate them from previous iterations of said class. This allows for many diverse strategies as you try to complement a unit's class aspects to your army, as you can either set up a domino effect of damage with chain attacks, or turn your thief into a one-man army as they eviscerate their enemies from the shadows, or, from behind a tree, because that works just as well. This just scratches the surface of combat, but we're not here to talk about that, or the surprisingly well-written story, or the soundtrack that's filled with amazing remixes of series classic. Seriously, that Thracia remix did not need to go that hard, and they better use it in the Genealogy remake. No. You saw the title, and more likely the thumbnail if I'm being honest, as we're here to talk about characters. Engage has had such a colorful cast, in more ways than one, and has quickly become one of my favorite entries in the series. I've never struggled this hard in determining my favorites for a video like this, because even though you get 14 units in the final chapter, I had a tough time cutting 4 to make this list, and I didn't feel like hurting myself to make a longer video. Again. So, the rules are simple. If I like them, they're in, and I'll talk about their character and combat to explain my adoration for them. I'll do my best to keep spoilers out of this, so story stuff I won't really go into, but gameplay, that's pretty much fair game at this point. And that's about it, so now my script says to make a cringy transition on the fly here, so let's quick change over to the main part of the video. Look what you made me do, past self. That was cringe. I never believed I'd like this character that much going into the game based on their goofy ass design that I fully believed was fake when I first saw it, but my number 10 spot goes to the main lord of this game, Alear. Lords are hit or miss in the series, as you either get amazing characters like Dimitri and Lucina when done right, or you get horrendous ones like Micaiah and Roy when IS decides that late promotions aren't a stupid idea. They very much are. Alear is one of the few lords in the series who is simple and refreshingly so. As the divine dragon who slept for 1,000 years after the battle against the fell dragon, they awaken and are tasked with gathering the 12 emblems in order to blah 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 standard JRPG protag-ish. So what makes Alear special? Well, that's just it. It's the fact that they're not special is what makes them so charming. This cast is filled with circus freaks for characters, so having Alear be the sanest one in the army, and making them play the straight man, or woman in my file, in contrast to the main cast, did a really good job of bringing out their natural charisma, and really let the voice actors who did them shine, except for theirs with Zelkov. But that A support is gold.
Oh, no. Please, divine one, do not allow yourself to be influenced by someone like me. People will look at you strangely.
Let them. I don't care what they think, but here in this room, what do those differences matter? I'm just amusing myself. All we're doing is killing time.
I deeply regret filling your head with rubbish.
Laura Stahl and Brandon McInnes did such good jobs voicing Alear, as they perfectly captured the confusion someone would have in seeing a world 1,000 years after they left it, but having this beautiful eagerness about them is what captivated me in both their performances. Regarding combat, Alear is the main lord of a modern Fire Emblem, so of course she was goated for me, especially since I gave her the best emblem in the game, Lyn. When used by a dragon, that's her, you get 2 bonuses with Lyn. The first is that Astra Storm's range is increased to a 15 tile radius, and the second is that she can summon an extra double, meaning she gets 5 meat shields, and the enemies will always prioritize them for some stupid reason. With the wind at her back and Lyn by her side, Alear was a pivotal unit in my file for these reasons. She was offensive thanks to Mulagir letting her deal with dragons from a distance, defensive thanks to her doubles as they took hits for the army, and man did she crit like crazy as I gave her the classic Wrath Vantage combo, which, you know, made her just a little bit better. Alear is a great unit who has become one of my favorite lords in the series thanks to their raw power and that plucky energy they have that has simply captivated me. You know what 3 houses revealed to me? It's not just the men who are down bad in FE. Ladies and gays, all it took was one emo boy and you went wild. And then, when you could put the emo boy in that dancer dress, it was curtains. Intelligent Systems took note of the thirst and presented us with the first male dancer in the main series. And he's great. Sadal's combat means nothing because dancer. I gave him the Dorcas ring.
What's happened to Dorcas?
As it gave him 5 HP, and I did not use DLC in my initial run. I also gave him Canter Plus because giving 3 move to a dancer after dancing is as broken as it sounds, alongside quality time to provide passive healing. Now, let's go over the part that actually matters for this list, his character. Sadal is an eccentric character, but he hides it beneath a cool and mysterious demeanor. That facade quickly fades, however, once his stomach takes over and this poor man crumbles. In order to keep up his impeccable physique, because I see those washboard abs, it takes great discipline, and as someone who's been working out for almost a year now, I can assure you it's a struggle as I still get sore for days after doing it sometimes. However, Sadal is the man of many talents, as he is also a fortune teller, and while his talents are wasted at the Somnial, they lead to some really good supports. One of my favorites was his one with Citrine, where she has him read Brodia's future. He initially sees nothing, but eventually sees it clearly after the war, but it will need to be guided properly, giving Citrine hope for her homeland. However, my favorite support with him is his one with Yunaka. Yunaka is totally not like the other girls as she has killer impressions. Sadal catches wind of this and wants to perform with her as Man Can Act 2, I guess. After convincing her to practice, Sadal decides that Yunaka should be the lead for their little play, but she gets stage fright at the last minute. To calm her, Sadal reveals that he was secretly a 3 houses character as his best stat wasn't his speed, but rather his Riz stat, as he recites a romantic line from the script to calm her nerves, and, if the credits are to be believed, they deliver a knockout performance, giving a glorious conclusion to both of these wonderful characters. If you saw my top 10 on my favorite classes in Fire Emblem, then you know that I like flyers. Now flyers were nerfed in this game, but that wasn't going to stop me from using them. Now if you also know me, you know I'm a massive Camilla simp because I abide by the wise words of Spike Spiegel, and Camilla can certainly kick some ass while flaunting her own. So let's talk about the best flying mage in the game, Chloe. Chloe has a gorgeous design in her art in Heroes, as it does her so much justice. It almost makes me forgive her freakish obsession with folk food, whatever that actually means. Look, I have no shame in admitting that I fished out food from trash cans during tough times, but even I probably wouldn't have touched most of the stuff she stomachs. Snake sounds interesting though, not gonna lie. Focusing on her combat prowess though, Chloe was my best offensive flyer for one reason, Sigurd. Instead of having Alfred use the emblem of the Holy War, I decided that having a 10-move flyer by Chapter 5 was very much something I wanted. Once I got a taste of that power, I never took it off her. With Sigurd's momentum skill granting that extra attack with each tile she moved, Chloe had enough power to one-round enemies and then back out of harm's way with Canter. Eventually, I promoted her to a Griffin Knight as I really needed the staff utility at the time, but this offered another benefit. While Chloe's strength growth is a meager 35%, her magic growth will get boosted to 50% as a Griffin. I decided to keep with lances, but if you go down the mage path like I did, swords are best as the Levin sword is superior in every way to the flame lance, and the less we say about the Hurricane Axe, the better. Character-wise, Chloe is pleasant and charming, but the game really overuses that folk food gag with her, which I didn't care for. And her backstory as a noble who yearned for freedom is like another cyan-haired retainer we've seen before, but just like that one, Chloe didn't do much for me in the character department. Probably most people's favorite support of hers is with Marin, to which there is no more apt response than ha! Gay! Chloe is an early game Peg Knight that I turned into a Harbinger of Flame in battle, as I gave her looks that could kill, which made her that much more fun to use. If there was one character who seemingly captivated everyone when playing this game, it was Lapis. Lapis is precious in every sense of the word, and she comes at a great time in the game as she is your first sword unit besides your main lord, who you desperately need. In terms of potential, well, her HP and speed growths are her only growths above 40%, and she has a 25% strength growth. Well, she has base 11 speed, which isn't bad for this point, but you get Diamant the very next chapter, who has better, well, everything. That didn't stop me from trying to make her a hero though, which started off well, but then I got 10 straight level ups with no strength procs. I was getting desperate. There's no way my waifu could be trash. There has to be a solution here. And thankfully, there is an Engage. For you see, why make Lapis a hero when I could turn her into a warrior, giving her more strength, better bulk with higher HP and defense growths, all while gaining useful bow utility. After that class change, Lapis eventually hit her stride and was finally
at 100%.
Now for emblems, again, no DLC, so I decided to give the packed ring to her because she's so precious and honestly really needed the power to keep up. But with the power of platonic friendship? I don't know. She was at 200% as using the Engage Plus mechanic made her pop off the same way, anyone would if you gave them the packed ring. Her supports are fairly straightforward as Lapis comes from humble beginnings as she is the daughter to yam farmers in Brodia and she ended up winning a contest to become Alchris Retainer. She does wrestle bears after all.
Any chance you used to train by fighting bears?
Fighting Burn? Of course. I battled their forces all the time. Wait, did you say Burn?
One aspect of Lapis that I found especially charming was how thrifty she was. She is a resourceful girl who can make anything from elaborate contraptions to charming knickknacks with essentially scrap material, and she'd probably be an insane cosplayer in the real world with this talent. These positive traits of hers, combined with her compelling character arc of accepting her origins as a sign of strength rather than a burden, are why I don't regret giving her my pact ring. However, she's not the last lady we're going to be talking about on this list, but I still love her all the same. So while we just talked about the female party member I gave the pact ring to, we're not going to be talking about female characters right now, right? While Rosato's androgyny confused a couple of people initially, I cared not for their gender because I was ready to give him all my love and support as he was a Soul Wyvern in Engage. Although, that didn't really take that much effort. Rosato's bases are great for his join time, and his growths are some of the best in the game, making him the perfect pick for my super unit. Emblems brought more benefits beyond their Engage skills as they also bring engravings. Engravings are enhancements that let you adjust the stats of a weapon. Easily the best of these in the base game is the Engraving of Fates, which gives a 30 crit bonus and some avoid, all at the cost of a 2 might penalty. Naturally, a Killer Axe is the best candidate as its native 11 might is the highest for all of the critical weapons. So, I slapped the Killer Axe he dropped in Chapter 10 back onto him, gave it the Fates engraving, and watched him slaughter everything. Now, let's be honest, any unit with this build would be broken and powerful, but my reasoning for using Rosato as my crit machine was because he had the benefits of all my best units, and they didn't utilize it as well as he did. He was bulky enough to survive multiple hits, he had the speed to double, granting him 2 chances to crit, and vastly higher chances to 1 round on player phase. Hell, Rosato even had good enough magic to warrant using 11 sword after I reclassed him, which shredded armors. To go even further with his power, I gave him the Emblem of the Academy because I like the idea of a 6-move flying dancer who can refresh 4 units, all while having Cancer Plus to move themselves after. In terms of character, Rosato surprised me with how genuine he was. His support with Sidal shows that he doesn't really do anything special to be so charming, much to Sidal's dismay. His support with Alir showed his talent and passion for drawing, reflecting his dedication for improvement that gets expanded with his Goldberry support in his pursuit of cooking. All these great traits capped off with his support with Hortensia, as it shows that he pursues his passions out of sincerity as he wants to be a better person to be there for his friends, cementing him as one of my best boys in Engage. Now that I've brought up my favorite illusion Retainer, it's time for me to talk about my favorite illusion Princess.
Hortensia! Woo! Hoo-hoo! Yeah!
Bruh.
while it's probably more on brand for me to like the character that breasts boobily across the battlefield, Hortensia's personality was too big to ignore because it's big alright. Thanks to having +1 range on all staves, Hortensia is the objective best staff user in the game. While her 12 base magic with a 40% growth as a Sleipnir rider, I hope I said that right, is kind of low, she still has a good rank for using stronger staves like Fortify or Entrap. Hortensia's incredible base 19 speed though, carried by her 65% growth, allowed her to double until endgame, letting her melt armors. Factor in her godly luck and you have a unit that matches Zelkov in terms of evasiveness, while being a flyer. Man, why couldn't I have been intelligent and just turned her into a grounded unit? Anyways, let's go to the support tier, as I'm sure a few of you decided not to use this girl once you heard
The second princess of Illusia, Hortensia! Now then, hello, everybody!
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the man?
Hortensia debuts with a fake-ass voice in Chapter 7, but it shows a key part of her character that differentiates her from the other royals. Hortensia is the youngest royal by far, as she's just 14. Remember how you acted at 14? Stupid, rash, overly confident, and horrible with decision making? Well, that's how I look back on my cringy teenage years, and while I was considered a gifted child at her age, I wasn't playing hopscotch with academics like she was with all her grade skipping. That said, that does reflect her wisdom despite her adolescence though. Her support with the leader delves into her need to be charming, as it's how her mother secured her safety in the court despite being a concubine. Her support with Ivy goes deeper into this and reveals that Hortensia lost her mom at just 7 years old, and it's not exactly fun donning a smile in front of people scrutinizing your every move. Speaking from experience with that one, I can relate, girl. That said, Ivy happily accepts her as family, but Hortensia also found loyal friends in Rosado and Goldmary who both admire and respect her. Hortensia has Clarion-like evasion mixed with Delphia levels of magic, all in a large personality that's completely her own, making her my favorite illusion character, princess or otherwise. I had a very hard time deciding between this character and Hortensia for who would take the title of best girl for me in Engage, but no matter how hard I tried, I could not deny the Yunaka sweep!
What would you make me do? You're dead. Drop your guard.
I don't care how much better Zelkov is as a unit when he joins. I did what every mid-level FE player would do if they saw a quirky character who is totally not like the other units with a body like that, and it goes something like this.
You captured my interest.
Huh?
You have my ideal physique. I couldn't look away from how perfect you are. That's why I wanted to do a close inspection.
Aw, what a preventable misunderstanding.
I then decided to commit to making sure she's OP as fuck, which is not that hard to do with thieves in this game. I'm sure all of you already know about the absurd power scaling that comes with silver daggers, as a fully forged one gets 10 extra might, and if you didn't, what are you, living under a rock?
Who are you people?
And while that's the reaction she has to anyone inviting her to socialize, when you have her set up properly either with Corrin's Fog or Lynn's Speedtaker, ideally both, then you have a unit who can whittle away at even the strongest of enemies, all while dodging enemy onslaughts. I had another unit set up the Fog for her, so ultimately I gave her Marth as an emblem to boost her strength. When you first see Yunaka, you immediately notice she's not like the other girls. Okay, I'm done with that bit. You know, because she has those weird hair star things and speaks like a zoomer, but she let this line slip.
Yeah, I have a killer's eyes.
And then when you see her personal skill, you're just left wondering what her deal is. Well, if you have her support with Citrine, then you learn that Yunaka wasn't born Yunaka, but Larimar, a child abandoned by her parents on the Brodian border and taken in by an assassin. The assassin then trained her in his footsteps, ultimately ending with him giving Larimar one last mission, to kill him as he contracted a fatal disease. Having followed her master's final order, she then donned the name Yunaka to leave behind her dark past in hopes of living a new life. this is where her quirky personality comes from, as she absolutely freaks out whenever she drops her guard or someone tries to pry into her past. However, she's truly a woman with a heart of gold, as she reveals to Citrine that her attempt to learn about the Brodian nobles was to suggest a plan to help out war orphans. And honestly, I think that's good enough to call her best girl, and it seems like a lot of people agree with me on that one. So you might have realized something from that last part. I stated that Yunaka is the best girl engaged, so does this mean my top 3 is all guys?
100 now, Carter, 125?
Yep.
This cast is already amazing with the characters I mentioned, and while I have my best girl locked in, best boy is a struggle. You have Ulcris being a timid lord who cares deeply about his retainers, and I mean, I would too if these queens were protecting me. Zelkov is genuinely interesting, even though I have no idea what his Japanese quirk is, that this is the path that localization thought was best for him, and Clan sounds a little too much like Deku. Yes, I know it's the same voice actor, but if I had a nickel for every pickle-obsessed boy in FE, well, I'd only have 2 nickels, but it's still really weird that it happened twice. However, we're not talking about any of those characters who are great in their own rights, as while he may always be a prince loyal to the queen, it's time to talk about an absolute king in Fogado. First off, let me call this man by what he should be known as Fogado is the GOAT, and his name should bear that weight too, as I like to call him Fogodo. Combat-wise, Fogodo is straightforward as he is a Cupido, a sword-wielding bow knight with a deceptively potent magic stat. Since the Radiant Bow in this game has a base might of 19 for some reason, and gains an additional 5 might when fully forged, this man can make use of one of the weaker emblems in the game in Erica because she gives extra magic for some weird reason, and has a pocket delete in Twin Strike. No, right. That said, his best ring is probably the Claude S ring, so that he can become the Wind God and gain +1 range at full health, and in all honesty, that's pretty broken when you combo the fact that I gave him Canter and Draconic Hex to whittle away at anything he couldn't chip at, so making a 4-range longbow even better than it already sounds on paper. Character-wise, Fogado is a charmer, so a lot of his supports tend to focus on that. However, he's also a diligent prince who is protective of his people, hence why he leads the Sentinels. While I love his support with Rosado, as this interaction is just hilarious.
Am I the cutest you've ever seen?
Oh, no, definitely not.
What?
His best support is probably one with his older sister, Tamara. So considering the fact that I'm an only child, I don't really know how siblings work, but I asked my old college roommate and he told me, yeah, it goes something like this, and this is probably one of the cutest interactions in the game. Overall, Fogado may have a silver tongue, but underneath that is a heart of gold that belongs to an absolute king that should always be remembered as the GOAT. Seriously, 19 might magic weapon, what the fuck were they smoking when they did that? Next up is a boy who gets way too much slander when he doesn't deserve it, and while he may be goofy at times,
the Crown Prince Alfred of Firenze is here to help. Let me at him.
This is a pure boy who must be protected at all costs. Although he did just fine for himself in my run. While I know Alfred is a controversial unit as he was trash for some and amazing for others, I clearly fall into the latter category and I want to explain his variance. Since Alfred is an early game unit, he needs to have solid bases and good growths to keep up with later units that join, especially with Engaged having cracked pre-promotes. Alfred has a growth of 40% in strength, speed, defense, and luck. He's malleable as a unit and would probably excel as a wyvern because they didn't really learn from 3 houses, but I kept him as an Avenir, pumping all those 40% growths into the 50 and 60 range. Those are pretty solid, but if luck isn't on your side, I can see how he turns out underwhelming, and Alfred did admittedly start to struggle towards the mid-game for me as he wasn't doubling as much. You would think his muscle training would make him bulkier in terms of build, but no matter how you look at it, this boy is diagnosed with being a twink for the rest of his life. Ultimately, I decided to give him the Ike Ring, and it fit perfectly on his slender fingers. Alfred had the tankiness of a general, and thanks to his massive HP, he could take on mage as well and became my most reliable wall who had great utility on top of it. Despite my benching of Saline, because most of you did too, don't lie to me, I was still able to see his A support with her, which completely flipped my perception of this boy. After seeing Alfred be all "I'm Goofy Goober" in their C and B support, and most of his other supports too, his A support opens with him suffering from an asthma attack, to which Saline looks to get help, but Alfred stops her. He knows that he has to overcome this alone, as he won't have his allies there when he's ruling Philistine, as he still is the crown prince despite his condition. This is why Alfred hides his illness, because he feels great shame from it, and he wants to keep his musclehead image to support the morale of the army. This support completely recontextualizes Alfred as a character. He goes from a lovable dork to one of the most responsible units in the army. Seriously, go and rewatch his other supports and see how precious this prince is when you have this knowledge, and you'll understand why he's one of my favorite characters in this game. Before we go into my favorite character from Engage, let's discuss runner-ups. Okay, as much as I ragged on her in this video, I did like Ivy. I just wish she had more character development, as a lot of it does feel like they took Camilla, kept about 10% of the crazy, 20% of the big sis vibes, and then watered down the remaining 70%. Doesn't help that her speed stat is suspect at best given the 40% growth, getting no boost from her class, and 13 base is just not cutting it at her join time. Also, Grasping Void sucks and is just bootleg Ren Heaven, but since I'm a flyer fanatic, I kept her in the class. Tamara is another character who didn't wow me in battle, and her character also felt very one-note. I like the idea of a carefree princess, but maybe if she had more depth to her like Alfred did, I'd have liked her a bit more. However, her younger Sibby was truly the captivator of the two. Also as a unit, Tamara is a walking gotcha, as she'll either quad the enemy for 0 damage, or instantly blow them up if Sandstorm procs, and there is no in between. Her reliance on Leaf to fix her abysmal build was also a massive hindrance. Finally, we have Gold Mary, another hero who wound up getting strength screwed for me, but unlike Lapis, she didn't get a bond ring to fix her power, although I think her reclass as a warrior did enough to keep her going, and she made great use of the Lucina ring. Character-wise, I'm still on the fence, as I really dislike the localization changes shifting her personality to focus more on her elegance, whatever that means, because honestly, while she is crazy hot, she's also just crazy in general, as Gold Mary is a bad bitch and she knows it, but I think the shift in character didn't really do her justice. I mean, at least it wasn't as bad as Zelkov's. Okay, real talk, I think I like Zelkov as a character. I didn't use him, but he seems chill and is clearly powerful, so he's right up my alley. If this video does well enough, I'd love to make a part 2 or a follow-up video where I talk about 10 more characters after doing a maddening run of this game, where I would use mostly new ones that I didn't mention in this video, and I think it'd be a fun idea to do that again, but let's not waste time on hypotheticals here, as I'm royally confident on my number 1 pick. My favorite unit in Engage is not just my favorite unit, but they're also my favorite character, and have my favorite design in the whole game. It's pretty obvious who it is at this point, but let me show off the power that is the Giga Chad himself. The next king of Brodia, Crown Prince Diamant.
I'm Claude. Take it easy on me, maybe? I won't go easy on you, just because we're allies. Nothing short of victory. The loss is mine.
Takes a lot of work to...
This will hurt.
I feel I have let my brother down.
Now I'm angry.
Victory is yours.
Now I'm angry.
Looks like it's my loss.
Are you watching, Father?
I lost.
Are you watching, Father? Now I'm angry.
You can if you bested me.
Thank you for sparring with me.
Ike is the natural choice for Diamant as an emblem, but you already know I gave him to Alfred, so who did I use with Diamant? You see, that's the thing. Diamant was carrying my army for so long that he just didn't use an emblem until Roy returned, and even then, he doesn't really add anything for Diamant, as Roy is good for a 1-turn clear in the final chapter of the Fel Xenologue, and that's about it. So, why was Diamant a Giga Chad for me? Well, giving the only unit in the game with self-sustainability, both Wrath and Vantage, was a good start. His bases are also amazing for his level, as 13 strength and speed for a unit that can promote straight away and get a 50% strength growth with the 55% speed growth is a great foundation for a strong offensive unit. Having a 90% HP growth and a 55% defense growth is also the blueprint for a solid defensive unit. Combine the two and you get the juggernaut that is Diamant. He is not without flaw though, as he reveals in his support with Ulcris that he is horribly afraid of magic due to a freak accident that happened as a kid. I mean, all it took was one glance at his res cap to figure that out, but that's why I love Diamant. He's a serious man who is the crown prince of a warrior nation, but he wants to pursue the path of peace. He is worried about not being able to live up to his father's legacy, but he has no choice now. His fears about his father's pride were fully realized as he marched off to his death and allowed his blood to be used to revive Sombron. Slapping an extra I in his name did not hide what he truly was. Now, Diamant has to guide a nation through its darkest times and a reconstruction process after the war, but despite this incredible pressure he is under, he never loses himself. This isn't to say that he is flawless, but years of training have conditioned him to tackle these situations, and underneath that serious nature is just a man who wants to have a good laugh.
I can't stop. Oh, my sides.
That hearty laugh reflects something that a ruler needs to have: compassion. Diamant may put up the stoic front, but he's just another person who understands the weight of the responsibility he bears. One of his best supports is his one with Ivy, as it shows the growth of both of these characters well, as they have the same concerns. Starting with the C, Diamant helps Ivy with her fear of ghosts because I guess all the busty characters need overused tropes in this game. Anyways, he gives her a gem that is said to bring courage to those who hold it. Ivy is unsure about receiving a gift from the Prince of Brodia, but he lets her decide what to do with it. Eventually, Ivy does thank him, however, Diamant doesn't feel justified in accepting gratitude from her, considering, yeah, no, his kingdom has murdered countless of her people over the centuries. But Ivy is just glad that someone was genuinely kind to her, and she sees that Diamant is a good man at his core. Diamant then confides in Ivy that he worries about his nation's future, but Ivy is glad that she can relate to someone considering she's a divine dragon worshipper who now has to lead a nation of cultists. Finally, in their A support, Ivy took the gem from Diamant and turned it into a necklace, giving her an idea for future treaties as Elusia can refine Brodia's natural resources into more valuable goods. Diamant thanks her as a Prince of Brodia as she was able to allay his fears and show him how his dreams of peace can be realized. However, Ivy accepts his thanks as Diamant himself because it's only due to these two's understanding of one another that the futures they envision for their nations can be fully realized. With mutual trust developed, the two strive to work together once the war is over to facilitate this new act of diplomacy. This is a wonderful support that has two characters who have difficult decisions to make on their own, reaching a mutually beneficial result which would have been cemented with their wedding if the damn game had paired endings beyond the main character. Seriously, why are we regressing back to FE6 levels of rank? Okay, I'm over it. For now. I mean, I ship it, but maybe you ship him and Jade since Diamant is a great friend to his retainers and they work well off each other. Either way, I think that's enough Fire Emblem for right now, as I conclude this video by thanking you, the viewer, for watching as usual and keeping up with my eclectic upload schedule. I've got more ideas in the future, and I'm looking into different games, cause, you know, we did get a whole Xenoblade game I haven't talked about as much as I'd like to, but I hope that's gonna change soon. Really just depends on when I can get my shit together. I also have a very different video idea, and we'll see how that experimental one goes. Of course, if you want to see what crackpot idea I have next, you'll have to hit that subscribe button and hopefully not get mad at me when I talk about Bloons Tower Defense Gacha Edition, or make a random Pokemon video. I'm serious about wanting to do that other top 10 on more of this cast, as I think it's genuinely one of the best we've seen in a while, but again, I kinda need this one to pop off to warrant the effort that would go into making that video, and for you to be okay with waiting a bit for that one. Alright. With that all said, I'm off now, as I've got another Xenoblade Cat Girl to fall in love with. Again. Hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.